Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don and I'm a digital marketer. And before we get into today's podcast, let me just provide a quick message from our sponsor.
This episode of Life Science Success is brought to you by D3 Digital Media Marketing. Dive into the digital world with confidence and creativity on your side. D3 Digital Media Marketing is your all-in-one solution for making a lasting impact online. From the vibrant, engaging world of social media marketing, podcasts, and webinars, to the strategic depths of website development, SEO, pay-per-click, email, and content marketing, we tailor our approach to fit your unique brand story. Let's elevate your presence, connect with your audience, and drive success together. Your digital journey starts here. Visit d3digitalmedia.com to learn more.
So with that, let me just introduce our guest. Our guest today is Stephanie Oestreich. She's the managing director of the Myeloma Investment Fund, who has extensive background in life sciences, leadership, and a unique perspective as a semi-professional violinist. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you very much. Very, very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So thanks a lot for joining me. Would you mind just introducing yourself to our audience?
Of course. My name is Stephanie Oestreich. I'm originally from Berlin, Germany. I'm a dual citizen. I've studied biochemistry in Berlin, in New York, and then in the lab of a Nobel Prize winner at Harvard Medical School, got an MPA there. And then I was in pharma, in business development, and on the commercial side, did a number of launches and was responsible for a multi-billion product. And from there, I went to biotech, and now I'm in venture. I'm managing the Myeloma Investment Fund, which is the philanthropic fund of the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, and I'm also teaching at MIT.
Oh, very nice. Well, thank you for joining me. What made you want to be in life sciences? What led you to the point where you said, hey, look, I'd like to, this aspect of science?
Like probably, unfortunately, many of you, I also have experience in my own family, in my own friendship neighborhood of very devastating diseases. And I was very lucky. I'm very healthy. I have a lot of energy. And that's really why I wanted to devote my life to finding cures or at least treatments for patients and their physicians and their families where there exists none.
Yeah, it's such an important thing because I feel like a lot of us, have had somebody that's afflicted by cancer in one way or another, and oftentimes it's like, well, why was that person afflicted versus anybody else that you might happen to know? And I do feel like it leads a lot of people to the sciences to try and one, understand what's happening, but also, is there any way to possibly help?
Yeah, and science is incredibly complex. In the disease that I'm working on right now, multiple myeloma, the patients have many different mutations. They have different translocations in their genome, and they also have a different treatment journey. So I think it will probably be like in lung cancer. In 5 years, we will not have one disease. We will have several different ones. So in lung cancer, it was lung cancer 5 or 10 years ago, but now it's non-small cell lung cancer, small cell lung cancer, ALK positive, EGFR positive. So, and that will also lead us to more personalized treatments so that patients can hopefully live longer, have a better life, and hopefully at some point a cure.
Yeah, I do feel like it's one of the greatest benefits that we have is that we have more and more information all the time in terms of what's exactly happening, with these different types of cancers. So can you tell me a little bit more about what what is your current role at the Myeloma Investment Fund, and what sort of businesses are you currently investing in?
At the Myeloma Investment Fund, we have currently 10 active investments, 3 exits. and we invest in seed stage, Series A stage companies, startups in the US and in Europe, also in Canada, that have multiple myeloma programs ongoing. We are really going after breakthrough or moonshot therapies with novel targets or novel mechanisms or novel constructs in CAR T or cell therapy. So it's a very exciting time. We have a very full pipeline, and please stay tuned. We will also make some new announcements very soon.
Oh, very good. And whenever it comes to working with a company, I would imagine that you constantly are presented with different opportunities. What does that process look like if you were a company that were coming looking for some investment?
Yeah, it all starts with the science, obviously, and we're very lucky. We have a very experienced science and clinical team. So the first quote unquote hurdle are me and my associates. So we review opportunities that we either get referred to by other investors, by other biotech companies, or at conferences like Bio, for instance. And if we think it's worth a look of our CSO or our chief medical officer, we present that. We have a weekly meeting where we go over our pipeline. And if they think it's interesting, we present it to our scientific advisory board. And if they approve, then we also do due diligence, look at the IP, look at the legal aspects and also the financial aspects. And if then we negotiate the terms with the company, and if everything is good, then we present it to our investment committee. And if they approve, then we can invest in the company. And of course, we also manage the relationship. We either have board or board observer roles, or at least information rights, so that we can really provide the benefit that we can to the company. So we introduce them to other investors, to pharma companies, but also provide them with knowledge on how to design the clinical trials and where to conduct the clinical trials.
It's so important because I feel like coaching along the way and having a broad network and having the ability to connect people is important, but also just that ability to have somebody, continually that has the knowledge, in our space to say, here are some considerations as you look at the clinical trial itself is important.
Yeah, especially in a very complex disease. Just a few years ago, there was just a handful of therapies for multiple myeloma patients, and now there's over a dozen. There's many, many more in the clinic, many more in research, and that's very exciting news for patients. But that also means that the clinicians almost have to act as chess players. So they have to decide what's the right drug for the patient at the right time now, but also in the future. And that's also where we, with our landscape analysis, help both together with our KOLs, but also our portfolio companies.
Yeah, so important. So at the Myeloma Investment Fund, or MIF, what is the mission of the MIF and what impact are you aiming to achieve?
The MIF was started 5 years ago and belongs to the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, which is a 25-year-old patient foundation. And 5 years ago, the foundation realized that there was not enough innovation happening in multiple myeloma. Everybody was going after the same targets and the same mechanisms, and the decision was made to start a fund. And it's really to foster innovation. And the impact that we want to make is to both really analyze the landscape very well, and often we, together with other investors, are the first money into a startup. Because we believe we can assess the risk very well with our knowledge of the landscape, and after that, other investors are coming in as well, so that we can really bring these innovations to the clinic and then hopefully to the patients. And our aim is, to really work on a cure, ideally, for multiple myeloma patients.
Oh, perfect. Can you share with us a little bit more about the innovations that you're currently working on?
So we have a number of very diverse companies in our portfolio. I mentioned 10 active investments right now. There are a few on the cell therapy side. A few are already in the clinic. So yeah, novel CAR constructs, but also new targets they're going after. We have one company that is actually redirecting cytokines to the tumor site to basically kill the tumor in that way. And yeah, a number of other very exciting ones in the pipeline that also have new modalities like RNA, for instance. And we're also venturing out more and more into Europe, where there's really very, very good science, and that we hope we can also bring to patients.
Oh, very good. And how has your past experience helped to influence, what you currently do and how you support the MIF?
Yeah, I couldn't do what I'm doing now without my background. I learned a lot at Novartis and then at Roche, both about different disease areas. Even within oncology, I worked on solid tumors and also in hematology. Um, uh, on the business development side, which gave me good connections to pharma companies, and also an understanding from the buy side how pharma companies assess opportunities, and how they approve these internally, how these are being managed. And I also have a commercial background, so that's something that I'm bringing to this role as well. Very early on, we were also thinking about the commercial positioning, and if that's not possible, we decline an opportunity. So that's very important as well. And then having experience both in a public and a private biotech company uh, gave me very important experience from the quote unquote sell side. And really how to focus on basically your priority indications, and that's something that I can also bring to my companies. And now being an investor in so I was at RI Capital, a venture partner, and I also built up the North American investment arm for Evotec, and built an incubator together with Samsara Biocapital. So basically coming from different angles, but having mostly focused on oncology uh, gives me the experience that I need for this role.
Yeah, yeah. I always sort of am amazed at the sort of history that people have, and many of us collect a lot of different skills as you go through different roles, and to be in a role where you're evaluating, continually technologies. I would imagine, yes, it takes a lot from you and your history, but also, as you've indicated already, just that broader team to really be able to deeply look at the innovation that's being created, and whether or not, if you really believe and support, that overall innovation as well, is important.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely takes a village, and I'm very grateful to our team, also from the MMRF, who have tremendous experience on the research, on the clinical side. Our chief medical officer sees patients. I had an opportunity to shadow him for a day, and that was very, very insightful, and yeah, also quite humbling to see how much unmet medical need there still is. But I really draw from multiple different experiences. You mentioned I also play the violin, and those were some of my earliest leadership and also team experiences. So I've been playing since I was 5 years old, and then when I was 10, I got into an orchestra, and the learning there was that it's not about the individual musician. It's about fitting into the sound overall, and doing the best to create the sound together with the other musicians. But also, I got a lot of leadership lessons from that. Watching the conductor, how he or she is first, yeah, basically giving the applause to the musicians before bowing him or herself. And yeah, I've also been a concert master. And how do you lead a group? So many of these early experiences I can draw on in my professional life as well, and also simply being on stage and being comfortable presenting. That's something I learned very early on.
I have to. I mean, I have to sort of ask you some questions about the violin itself. So I mean, of all of the instruments, there are only some instruments that don't have clear indicators in terms of, where certain notes are. The violin being one, the bass being
Mhm.
another, the trombone
Mhm.
being a third. I mean, so there are only certain ones where you sort of look at the instrument and the player and have to wonder, right? How do you learn the position, and then also, you know to think about an entire orchestra doing the same thing across all of the violins or all of the instruments that don't have similar markings for where the notes are. I'm just curious, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, in my own history, I was 5 years old, and I came to the music school at the time, and the plan was that I start with a recorder. But the director of the music school was actually in love with one of the violin teachers, and she needed students. So he said, "Why don't you start with the violin?" And I said, yeah, why not? And he had a little clown's violin, I think it was a 16th, a really little instrument. And at the time, it had little markings, little dots,
Okay.
on the fingerboard where the notes were. But that's one of the things to learn. And the same thing with the bow. So you start, without the bow, and then you learn basically where you have to place your fingers, and then you put the bow into the mix as well, and over time it just goes into, it's ingrained in everything that you do. And you also hear, obviously, if something is out of tune. So that's how that works. But that's why, in the beginning, the violin sounds really terrible. And I remember my little brother for 5 years said, "Oh, the violin sounds scratchy," and that's also why you start very young. So I don't remember any of this, but by the time I got into the orchestra, I learned it needs a leader for the different sections. So you always have a leader for the violins, for the cellos, etc., and you need a focal point. So
Mm.
everybody, listens to the leader in that group. So first you create unity in that group, and then there's the conductor and also the concert master, and these create unity, the uniform sound overall. So that's a little bit how that works. But it's still a bit of a miracle if you look at the 80 to 100 musicians that are on stage at a concert in Carnegie Hall, where I had a chance to actually play a concert for the 9/11 firefighters once. It's a miracle that not much more happens. I mean, there's a lot happening that the audience doesn't even realize. But there's a constant, watching, listening, by every single musician. You have to really know your part, so that you can then basically, get out your feelers to make sure everybody is aligned.
I feel like there's so many leadership lessons in here as well, and the way that this all comes together, which is where you started with your analogy, is absolutely amazing, especially whenever you're listening from the outside, all of the individual pieces that have to come together.
Well, the very quickly, the probably the most important lesson is one that Ben Zander, the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra conductor, said said to us. The conductor doesn't make a sound.
Mm.
So if you think about that, I think it's a very profound insight. It's really the team, or the orchestra, that creates all the sound. The conductor is simply enabling them, and bringing everything together. And that's one of the most profound leadership lessons I learned.
Mm. Yeah, to come back to that, really quickly. I mean, some of the best CEOs that I've interacted with in the past in companies are primarily really good at asking questions. Their primary role, they know, is not to play, um, to have strength in terms of a lot of the things that are going on inside of the company. It's to let the individuals that they've hired, the smart people that they've hired, play those roles, now. And by having a lot of that experience, I feel like the best CEOs just sit there and ask key questions about, how would you approach this? What are some of the possible solutions that we could have, et cetera. Has that been
Mhm.
your experience as well?
Yeah, so I had a chance to be the executive assistant to one of the former Novartis CEOs, and I was always very impressed to see that he basically modulated his approach based on the performance of a different unit, a different country. When he was really able to sense very quickly, is everything under control? Does the leader have everything under control? And then he had a very light touch approach, and he basically let an experienced CEO operate. Or was there a problem where he needed to dig deeper? And if he discovered that, he could also go very, very deep. And and that's also my approach and my experience. You have to know enough about the different aspects. In this case, in my case, investing, legal, IP, finance, science, etc. To to really pose informed questions and bring it all together, but then also bring in your leadership team, and especially with experienced people, give them the freedom and the responsibility to really shine and do their job. So it's a very it's a modulating approach. It's almost a little bit like sailing. Yeah, it depends on where the wind blows from. I'm going to go sailing next week, so that's a very visceral experience. I think it's also very akin to leadership.
Oh, very good. So there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Uh, Innovation, new science. I'm very, very energized working with very smart scientists, bringing innovation to life, bringing innovation to patients.
Mm. Yeah, and I would imagine that, given your role, right? I mean, you see a lot of innovation and sort of the key things that, are inspiring in that process. What are some of those?
It's really easy in hindsight to talk about a great innovation. I have and I had the good fortune to speak with some Nobel Prize winners, some very innovative scientists, and they were telling me I've been working on this for 20 years, and 20 years ago, for instance, cell therapy, which is now almost a cure in some hematology disease areas. Uh, 20 years ago, people said basically, what a crazy idea! Yeah, wanting to engineer T cells, and
Mm,
look where we are now. So. I'm very energized by this process, and really not deterred if somebody says, "Oh, this is a crazy idea." I think obviously you have to have some basis for it, and more details or more science results have to be generated first. But you have to go through this process.
mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. What concerns you?
Um, that we don't focus enough on innovation. There's obviously, some concerns now on costs in the healthcare system. I think the United States is at over 20% GDP. In European countries, it's around 10 to 12%. So there are a lot of cost cutting measures, but I think we have to continue to put money and effort into science and into innovation. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to cure some of the diseases that so far are not curable, and generate the pipelines that we really need in the future.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of an awful lot of companies that are struggling right now to try and get the first investment or the second investment to continue, the science that they have. And I've said a few times in different episodes that I feel like in a few years there's going to be a bit of a a drop off where all of a sudden you just don't see the amount of companies that you could possibly invest in because these early stage companies just couldn't continue what they were trying to do,
Mm.
and unfortunately I have a feeling that will be a greater challenge. But again, this is where things like the MIF come into play, as
Mhm.
looking at these companies. But I would imagine there's probably, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of companies that you could invest in, but there's only so much that you can do as well. It's probably just a challenge overall in terms of looking at the as a complete
Mhm.
spectrum there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's of course, yeah, it's about the quality, not so much about the quantity. For the reason that you mentioned, we are seeing a lot of companies. Since I started in this role, I've seen about 200 companies. So there's really a lot out there, and that's really great. There's still a lot of innovation, and what many companies are also doing. First of all, there's a lot of basically virtual innovation. So they're not creating their own labs, and working a lot with consultants, especially if they're early, so that they can stay flexible. And what we also advise our companies on is that they really focus.
Mhm.
So even if you have a platform technology that can be applicable to many different indications, it's important to have your priority indication and make that very clear also to your investors.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question: what excites you?
What really excites me is to speak with our patients. In my role, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of interactions with multiple myeloma patients, and that really puts a face to the disease. And it's wonderful to talk to some of them who whose disease is in remission, who are being well managed, and uh, not just looking at spreadsheets or PowerPoint presentations, but really speaking with the people who we are doing what we're doing for. That is the most motivating for me.
Yeah, it's I mean, absolutely exciting to get to see the end impact that that the things that you're working on can have as well, and just being able to just know that at the end of the day that the science is delivering some form of relief to patients as well.
Mhm.
So, Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast. I really appreciate you being here and for telling me about the Myeloma Investment Fund. And I look forward to seeing more and more companies, that receive investment in the future.
Mhm. Yeah, please stay tuned. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thanks a lot.